You could give it to Jason Pierre-Paul. You could have given it to Ndamukong Suh, but it just felt like someone from, especially that Tampa Bay D-line, just deserved it. Hello and welcome to the Monday, February 8th edition of the TV on Basketball Podcast with your host, TV. Hope you're all having a fantastic day, and thank you for clicking on to watch or listen to today's episode of the podcast. Before we start, I have to plug my other platforms. Remember to follow at TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for updates on the podcast and for other awesome content. If you're on YouTube, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. That would be highly appreciated. And for all my podcast listeners, remember to subscribe, leave a review if you're on Apple. And if you're on Spotify, Anchor, or Podbean, just continue to show your support in any way possible. I highly appreciate it. I have a great show lined up for you today. We're going to be talking about the Super Bowl and that crazy game that happened yesterday. Definitely not to a lot of people's expectations, but we will definitely review that. So we're going to have some football here. And we're going to have a bunch of NBA topics, including something about Trae Young, which I have to get off my chest, about the All-Star game as well, the Sacramento Kings, and more. So yeah, this is going to be an action-packed episode. So sit back, relax, and let's just get right into it. There is a lot to discuss today. And of course, we are opening today's show with the Super Bowl. Obviously, I had Joe on the podcast last Friday. Again, thank you, Joe, for coming on. But we have to talk about the Super Bowl and what happened. This game did not meet up to expectations. And the Buccaneers, yes, the Buccaneers win the Super Bowl. Tom Brady gets number 7. And they absolutely obliterated the Chiefs, winning 31-9. It was just honestly just the Buccaneers game just throughout. They got out to a very early lead, and you could just feel like right away, right from the beginning, Tom Brady got his first touchdown in the first quarter of any Super Bowl he's ever played in. Like, he just felt like it was different, and the Bucs never looked back. Gronkowski had a great game, caught 2 touchdowns. Antonio Brown made some key plays, including a touchdown to help seal it. And the Bucs just won this game on both ends. Like, they were the better offensive team, they were the better defensive team, and they come out with the win. Their second Super Bowl in their franchise's history, and the Super Bowl MVP went to Mr. Tom Brady, who gets ring number 7, like I said, and his 5th finals MVP, Super Bowl MVP. There's a lot to unpack here. We're going to go team by team, but let's start with the Bucs. I mean, Tom Brady gets number 7. I already think he's the GOAT. He is just, at this point, padding his stats, just making the gap even wider. And now he proved that he could do it in 2 conferences. He could do it with 2 teams. And, you know, he looked like he outperformed Patrick Mahomes, plain and simple, in this game. And like I said, with the Tampa Bay Bucks in this game, they got out to that early lead. Right before the end of the first quarter, they got that touchdown to Gronk. But the story here, I mean, we can talk about Tom Brady. He had a fantastic game. You know, 201 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Quarterback rating of 125. I mean, he had a great game. But this game was won on the defensive end, in my opinion. Like, there wasn't a lot of sacks for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but constantly just putting pressure on Patrick Mahomes really threw off the Chiefs' game plan. The way that they were only sending 5 guys. I mean, the problem with the Chiefs in this game was that they had no outside tackles. Their tackles, they're starting 2 backup tackles, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just kept getting pressure on pressure on pressure. And it cost Patrick Mahomes to go out the pocket, throw on the run. I mean, there were some throws that he made that were still fantastic, but his wide receivers dropped it. But they were just constantly applying pressure. And although only coming away with 2.5 sacks in this game, they were still able to just wreak havoc on that defensive end. Also catching 2 interceptions, you know, 1 for Devin White at the end of the game, and also 1 for Antoine Winfield. I think that was the one where it kind of bounced off a Kansas City chest, and then it just landed on his hands. But yeah, they just won this game on the defensive end. Like I said, they allowed nothing deep. They completely nullified Tyreek Hill in this game, who had 73 yards receiving. They didn't let him get going early. And although Travis Kelce, I mean, he had I believe, 100 something yards in this game, 133. He just never could really get into his flow, and most of those yards were just them like just trying to advance in the field like when they were down big. So yeah, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers like just got Kansas City out their zone, and they did it so consistently, and they were able to pull out this win. I mean, like all the touchdowns was caught by like just veteran players like Gronk, like Antonio Brown, and they won this game just being the better team. I'm going to talk about the Chiefs later, but and like kind of the misfortunes that they had throughout the game. But we're talking about the Bucks right now. Like I said, Tom Brady, 5th Super Bowl MVP. My only problem with this is like, yes, Tom Brady did probably have the best individual stat line. Like I said, over 200 yards, 3 touchdowns, 125 passer rating. But it felt like it kind of had to go to the defense. I mean, they just wreaked havoc throughout the entire game. And you could just tell like how like the discrepancy in like how both quarterbacks had to play. Tom Brady was only pressured 5 times in this game, which apparently is a Super Bowl low. I mean, no one has been least pressured than Tom Brady than in this game. And on the other side, the defense just wreaked havoc. Patrick Mahomes was pressured 29 times in this game, which is a Super Bowl record. Like, I just felt like it had to go to one of them. I don't have like the individual pressure numbers, but you could have maybe given it to someone like a Shaq Barrett, who got 1 sack, but he was just all over that offensive line. You could give it to Jason Pierre-Paul. You could have given it to Ndamukong Suh, but it just felt like someone from, especially that Tampa Bay D-line, just deserved it. I'm not saying that Brady doesn't. I mean, he did play a great game, but this game was like basically determined on the defensive end, and they just took Patrick Mahomes away from this game at a historic rate. And I'm not 100% sure if this is true or not, but they were mentioning throughout the game how like no one has really like keeping Kansas City down like by like over 20 or something. So this is something like that we've really just like not seen, and they just did it. They pulled off their defensive plan and it worked. So although Tom Brady, I mean, 5th Super Bowl MVP, he definitely has probably the best stats. I really do believe that someone on that defensive end really should have gotten it. But at the end of the day, Bucks get the championship. Brady gets number 7. That was a historic day for them. Now to the Chiefs. I talked about how they could not get into a flow, and what really felt different about this game, like for the Kansas City Chiefs, is that they didn't have no one thought that like, okay, how do I put it? It just didn't feel that they could come back in this game. It really didn't. And the thing about with the Kansas City Chiefs, and I like to compare them a lot to the Golden State Warriors in the NBA, is that no matter how ahead you are, how much you're blowing them out, it always feels like they're in it because they have Patrick Mahomes, because they have Tyreek Hill, because they have Travis Kelce, that they could just come back. There was no point in this game where it felt like that. It really didn't. I mean, obviously, a lot of the time, because Patrick Mahomes had to go out the pocket, he had to trying to keep making plays on his feet and trying to make a lot of these throws on the run. But they just could not get into a flow. They could not protect Patrick Mahomes. And a lot of people are going to look to the first half and say, look, there were a lot of penalties. And yes, there were. I believe they had over 100 yards worth of penalties in the first half alone. And yes, some of those were very, very questionable. One of them being, I believe, the trip on, I think it was Mike Evans when he was going down the sideline, when he was trying to catch a ball. I thought it was uncatchable, and the refs called defensive pass interference, which I thought was ridiculous, but it is what it is. And then the other one where, but then I think it just let them affect them. I mean, there were some bad calls, yes, but the Kansas City Chiefs let those calls get to them, and they were playing undisciplined. That's what it was. And although, like I said, they didn't deserve all those penalties, they kind of fell into the refs' hands, and they were giving them reasons to call them. And they just didn't look like themselves. Their defense played horrible. They just got no pressure on Tom Brady, and the offensive line, missing their 2 starting tackles, could not protect Patrick Mahomes. And the thing about Patrick Mahomes was he was throwing these crazy passes while falling down stuff, and somehow his receivers were even dropping it. I honestly felt bad for the guy this game. He just could not Like he just like no one could like was getting it going for him. No one, and he had to keep getting hit, kept getting hit, and it was just an unfortunate day for the Kansas City Chiefs, who were a dominant team throughout the season, who were Super Bowl favorites coming into the season, who looked dominant last year. I mean, it just felt like they haven't been to the Super Bowl before, and which is weird because they won last year, and it just like was not a good game for them. Like they didn't even score a touchdown. They did not score a touchdown in this game, and they just did not look like themselves. And it honestly was a disappointing game because I thought this was gonna be an all-time great game. You know, Patrick Mahomes, one of the probably the best player in the NFL today. Tom Brady, the GOAT. This is just gonna be a good passing of the torch moment, or just like a good battle between, you know, the old, you know, the just the GOAT and like probably people who are calling maybe a future GOAT. But it just wasn't like that. It just wasn't like that, and unfortunately, the Chiefs got shut down. They definitely could get better. I mean, this is not really gonna be, I think, like a huge deal for them, just because they have the talent that they have. They have Patrick Mahomes still. I think they're gonna be great for the next like 5 to 10 years. They'll probably make more Super Bowls, but this game was rough for them. This game was very, very rough to them, and yeah, they just have to come back next year and see and try to bounce back. Now that they know how it feels like to have defeated the Super Bowl, I feel like someone like Patrick Mahomes is going to look at this and kind of use it as motivation to come back next year. But yeah, I mean, Super Bowl 55, 31-9 Bucks. Not as like crazy of a game as we thought it was going to be, but you know, it was nice seeing Tom Brady get number 7. It was nice to see, you know, people like Antonio Brown, who was shunned out the league, play a pretty big part in that Super Bowl. Gronk getting 2 pretty big touchdowns and kind of getting that pass down the middle. It was good. It was a good game. Like I said, the officiating in this first half especially could have been better, but the Chiefs just got outplayed. They just got outplayed. Let's move off to the NFL. I mean, we're not going to talk too much about this, but we have to go back into the NBA stuff, and I want to talk about the All-Star game. Me and Joe made our picks for the All-Star starters on Friday, which you should go definitely check out. But over the weekend, and I believe on Friday, I mean, we kind of got into it, but the NBA is still looking to have this All-Star game, and I didn't really like put my full thoughts into it, so I'm going to do it in this episode. I don't agree with it whatsoever. Nothing at all. I don't like what they're trying to do here, and I think that like it's just not ethical. It's not safe at the moment. They want to do this for the cash grab, but the thing is, like, if you look at all the other leagues in sports, the NFL didn't have their Pro Bowl. MLB didn't have whatever their home run derby, I believe, or their All-Star game, if they even have one. I don't think, and the NHL is doing it either. I mean, they're not even like having Canada teams like go to the U.S. during the season. Like, every other team kind of knows the risks, but the NBA is still trying to push forward with this game. I mean, they're trying to have this, I believe it was March 7th in Atlanta, but I just think that this, like, invites just more interaction, which they do not want right now. Like, you got the cases going down, everyone's trying to get the vaccine, and it just, like, invites, like, just more gathering and more people, like, to kind of, I guess, break laws and not the laws, but like, break protocol. I mean, especially in the Atlanta area. I mean, you know what happened with who will like in those strip clubs and stuff like that. Like, it's just not ethical, and you're bringing people from all these different markets in, and you're having them play what, an exhibition game? No, that ain't right. That ain't right in my opinion. And besides, you know, the money. I mean, whatever money they make from this will definitely help, and obviously the TV watches and stuff. But I just really don't see any benefit to this. I mean, the players are not invested. I don't think the fans I think the majority of fans think it's not even like necessary at all, just because it's an exhibition. Like, we just want to get through this NBA season, and they just like, it just felt like this, like, it's just greed. This felt like it's just pure greed, and I think they're putting the season in jeopardy by doing this. Yes, they're gonna have to go through all this protocol and testing and stuff. For sure, they're gonna have like all these protocols just so they can have this game happen. But why? This has no bearing on the rest of the season. Just name the All-Stars. I mean, the All-Star game is important in the sense where you get these contract incentives and stuff. But you don't have to play the game. You really don't. And as much as I love the All-Star game from last year, you know, the whole like tribute to Kobe, that whole final quarter where it was just intense basketball. That was fun. It just doesn't feel the same now, especially with the limited fans, especially the fact that we're in a freaking global pandemic. It just doesn't feel right. And let me paint you this scenario, because I don't like. Hopefully, the NBA has put this into mind, but this like, and what I mean where this could like jeopardize the season. Just think about it this way. God forbid, one of them gets the virus, one of them due to contact tracing or whatever, get in contact with the virus. You do realize if one of them gets the virus, you're gonna have to quarantine all of the other players who are in the participation in this game. And this is the All-Star game, so that means you have these players who are the best players in the league, and you're telling say 24 of the best players in the league to come and play this game with no bearing on the season. And if one of them contracts COVID, dude, that means for the games going into it, going forward, you're gonna have players, you're gonna have some of the best players in the league just not playing, which is unfair to the teams, which is unfair to their markets, and it kind of could skew just standings and stuff. And the NBA is not gonna go. It's just potential to suspend their season once again, and that's just this is why I just don't want this going through. I think there's just too much risk into it. I don't think this is the year to continue the All-Star game. Obviously, they got agreement with the NBPA and all that, but I just don't think it should happen. I really don't think it should happen. But the NBA is a business at the end of the day. They're still gonna go through with it. I think something unless it's something where the NBA fans come together and say we're not watching, or the NBA players just come together no, we're not playing. It's just not gonna happen. And I think they're trying to do all the other All-Star activities as well, like the dunk contest and stuff. It just invites more people over there. Let's just not have it. Let's just not have it, please. But yeah, I just think there's too much risk to it, and they're doing this all for an exhibition game. I just do not think that this is the right move. Let's move to this. The All-Star game, like I said, is probably gonna go through and stuff like that. But and that's really the main storyline that was covered kind of throughout the weekend, even a bit towards the end of last week. But let's talk about a team that no one's really talking about it. Let's talk about the Sacramento Kings. Don't look now, but the Sacramento Kings are over 500. Right now they sit 12-11. I believe they're 10th place or 9th place in the West, and they're on a 4-game winning streak. They're beating good teams as well. I mean, although Paul George wasn't playing yesterday, they defeated the LA Clippers. They also defeated the Denver Nuggets, the Boston Celtics, and the Pelicans. Teams that we can comfortably say are better than them. And the way they're doing it is just it's kind of weird in the sense where they keep the games close, probably for the first 3 quarters, and then the fourth quarter they just take over. Let's look at the Pelicans game. They were down, I believe, by 7 going into the third quarter, and then they outscored the Pelicans 31-15 in the fourth. A lot of that had to do with De'Aaron Fox, 38 points, 12 assists in that game. The Celtics, I believe it was a 1-point deficit going into the fourth, and De'Aaron Fox, again, another just takeover game in the fourth. You got some good production from Harrison Barnes as well, who's been hitting shots, and Tyrese Halliburton, which I'll go to a bit later, which I'll talk about a bit later. Denver Nuggets, same thing. Just keep it close, and then when plays need to be made late in the game, they were able to. And the same thing with the Clippers. I mean, I could just go on and on, but that has been their formula to success this year. And let's talk about De'Aaron Fox first, because he is playing at an all-star level. Right now, he's averaging 23 points a game, 6.5 assists, 3.5 rebounds, on 48% from the field, 36% from 3, which is great, because last season I thought De'Aaron Fox was losing a bit of his jumper. I mean, he had he wasn't playing he was playing good basketball, but he was kind of losing his 3-point touch. I mean, last year, 29% from 3, especially because in his sophomore season he was shooting 37%. So I thought he was kind of losing his 3-point shot, but it's coming back this year, 36%. And he's, like I said, he's playing at an all-star level. He's playing extremely well so far this season, and he has a chance, especially if the Kings are over 500. I think there's no reason why you shouldn't put De'Aaron Fox on that team. But again, it's the West, so there's always just a deep influx of guards in that conference. But it's not just De'Aaron Fox. I mean, they're getting contributions from Harrison Barnes, who right now is having a pretty good season himself. 17 points a game, 7 rebounds, pretty good season. But their rookie, Mr. Tyrese Halliburton, he is playing phenomenal. 12 points per game, 5.5 assists, almost 4 rebounds. Now those stats don't jump out the page to you, but he's playing like he doesn't feel like he's a rookie. That's the thing with Tyrese Halliburton. He just doesn't feel like a rookie. He's making the right plays at the end of games, and he's like hitting clutch shots. I mean, yes, he has an ugly jumper, but it's going in and it's working. Like, he plays with so much poise and confidence, and it just feels like this Kings young core could just come together, it's just coming together right now. They're not really like wowing you on like either side of the ball. They still have the worst defensive. They're still the worst defensive team in the league. But their offense, man, is just showing up for them. De'Aaron Fox playing well, like I said. Halliburton. You can even look to people like Buddy Hield, who people thought he was just going to be out of the Kings this year. Is having a solid season, 16 points a game. Bagley with 12 points per game. They're just playing well. Rashawn Holmes, 13 points, 8 rebounds. Yes, they're not defending anyone, but they're just making enough plays at the end to close out these games. Now, should I be too invested in them? No, just because I know that the Kings haven't made the playoffs in the last 16, 17 years. And it always seems like when stuff seems to be going good, it always just kind of falls flat on their face. But they're fun to watch. And that's all you really want from them. You just want to see that this young core is developing. Especially last year when they looked like Luke Walton kind of ruined the team. In the sense where they kind of just weren't playing like themselves. They're starting to get back to that this year. And at least, at the very least, you're giving fans hope that somewhere down the line, if you keep this core intact, if you keep them, developing the chemistry, that they can get good down the line. And I think the Kings are just giving their fans hope. That's all you got to really do in the season. Do I think they're going to make the playoffs? No. They have a chance at the play-in seeds, but I don't think they're going to make it to the playoffs. But at least they're just giving their fans hope. At least. Let's move on to this. There was actually a trade that happened over the weekend involving Derrick Rose. I said a few weeks ago that I wanted him to get traded, and one of the teams I talked about him being traded to actually pulled the trigger. The New York Knicks acquired Derrick Rose, I believe it was yesterday, Sunday afternoon, in a trade with the Detroit Pistons where they send a second-round pick in 2021 via the Charlotte Hornets and Dennis Smith Jr. to Detroit in exchange for Rose. What I find really funny about this trade and just Derrick Rose going to the Knicks in general is, one, this is his second stint with the Knicks, and two, he is playing for Tom Thibodeau once again. And someone pointed this out, I believe, on Instagram or Twitter. Every team that Tom Thibodeau has coached, he has had Derrick Rose on his team at some point during each of those tenures, which is hilarious. And that just shows how much Tibbs loves the guy and that connection they had. And Tibbs just always wants him on this team. In terms of the trade, I wanted him to go to a contender, but I guess going to the Knicks is good just because he'll get opportunities. And, I mean, they're in need of a point guard. I mean, Elfrid Payton, I don't think is a reliable option. And Emmanuel Quickley, as much as I wanted him to start and stuff like that, I mean, they get Derrick Rose, who will help make them better. Just because he'll produce. I mean, last year he was in talks for Sixth Man of the Year. This year, I mean, the Pistons have been really bad, so I don't think anyone's really talking about it like that. But, he could still produce at a pretty high level. And I like to trade for him just because he can get his opportunity. Obviously, the Knicks would need someone like him. But I really didn't think that they needed to do it just because I wanted him to kind of give Quickley more opportunities. His minutes have been really up and down this season. I mean, there's some games where he looks like the Knicks' future point guard. I think he scored 27 points in a game or something like that. And then there's some games where he gets under 11 minutes a game, 11 minutes, and that's kind of inconsistency. Maybe Tibbs just doesn't trust playing the young guys this early, but I just think that bringing Derrick Rose kind of hurts his development. But you could also look at it in a sense where Derrick Rose can help improve the guy, help be a mentor to him. So hopefully Quickly uses that as an opportunity. But I still think that the Knicks didn't really mean to make this move. I would rather have seen him on one of the LA teams, maybe some team like the Milwaukee Bucks, maybe the Brooklyn Nets. But at the end of the day, he's getting opportunities, and at least he's fighting for something. At least he's fighting for something, because Detroit is not fighting for anything right at the moment. I mean, Dwayne Casey will try to tell you otherwise, but Derrick Rose is finally in a situation where at least he's fighting for a playoff spot. And he will get opportunities to help the team in big ways. Hopefully he does well in New York in the second time around. I hope to see him just have like continue his good career, and hopefully garner more Hall of Fame buzz, just like help like his Hall of Fame case as well. So yeah, Derrick Rose getting traded. I think that's the only trade from this weekend. I think that was a good move for the Knicks, and Derrick Rose at least is out of a situation where they're just constantly losing. And they talked about it. It was a mutual agreement. It was probably best for both teams for this to happen. So that was definitely a good trade for the Pistons for sure. I mean, they bring in. I didn't really talk about it from the Pistons side. A second round pick always helps. It's always good to have assets, and maybe they can revive Dennis Smith Jr.'s career. So let's hope that's the case. I mean, they are in need of a starting point guard. Let's see if he's actually going to start too. So that's going to be very, very interesting. Let's move into this final topic before we get into the end segments. I want to talk about officiating. I don't really kind of talk about like kind of bad calls a lot on this podcast, but I have to talk about this because on Saturday night there were kind of two games where they heard a bunch of questionable calls. I'm gonna go to the one quickly that I want that I'm not gonna talk like too in depth about. But the Mavericks-Warriors game, I mean, that was a fantastic game. Curry had, I believe, 57 points, 11 threes in that game, and he was dueling with Luka Doncic, but the Mavs were just able to pull out the win. And the thing is, like, near the end of the game, Warriors were making these good defensive plays, and the refs just calling them fouls. I mean, it felt like it's weird to say, but it felt like the refs just, like, were kind of screwing the Warriors over. And that led to a lot of free throws at the end of the game, which kind of sealed the deal for Dallas. I mean, especially the one where they had, I forgot who they had triple teamed. Like, they were playing excellent defense. And they called a foul there, and I'm like, oh, come on now. That's nothing. They literally, like, have this guy trapped. Draymond's trying to take the ball away from him, and they call a foul. I don't think, like, that contact, like, was warranted. Like, that warranted a foul, but yeah, they kind of screwed the Warriors over there. I mean, it was a great game from Steph, but they still ended up with a loss to Dallas. But I decided to talk about this because Atlanta Hawks versus Toronto Raptors was something else, man. It was something else. And this game, I'm gonna like put this out there right away. Officiating was bad for both sides. It really was. There were some plays for Atlanta where they were literally like getting hacked across the arm and not getting foul calls. But it could be the same thing for the Raptors. I mean, there were a lot of fouls that the Raptors were called on which were BS. And there's a play, I believe it was at the end of the third quarter, where Chris Boucher was trying to go for a dunk, and like I forgot which Hawks defender like just slapped him across the arm. Didn't hit the ball whatsoever, and they didn't call a foul. Like, it was just horribly officiated throughout the game. And I think it just kind of made this game hard to watch. But I decided to talk about this bad officiating because of Trae Young. When you talk about James Harden trying to get all these foul calls, obviously he is like, I think yearly he's been like leading the league in free throws. But Trae Young, man, the type of calls he gets is mind-boggling. It really was. Like, everyone knows like those rip throughs, those fouls where they try to get the player up the air and then lead into him. Like, he does that on a regular basis, and I don't want to say this on Harden either, but at least with Harden, like, you could tell he's trying to score and trying to like get like and ones and stuff. With Trae Young, he's not trying to get and ones. He's not trying to like get shots off. He's doing it for the call. Like, it just gets really annoying. And this made me think as to like these calls are just bad for the league in general. I'm not talking about just Trae Young and stuff like that, because even Steve Nash called him out, I believe, early in the season, which kind of led to his rough patch. But these type of calls where the player initiates the contact by getting the defender up in the air and then leading into him, or the one where they do the freaking rip through, which is so annoying, should be an offensive foul. And the reason I bring this up is that over the last few years, the refs have made an emphasis on the foul where where players kind of kick out their legs and kind of trip up the guy as they're trying to defend him. They're calling that an offensive foul. I know that because Kyle Lowry has been called for that multiple times in the last few years. And I think this should be too. The NBA really needs to look at this because this is just not natural basketball. This is just not. It just doesn't help with the flow of the game. Like, it's just not fun to watch. And it's not like it's the defender's the thing. It's like it's the offensive player trying to initiate the contact just so they can go to the free throw line and get fouled. It's like, this is just not a good thing for the league to have right now. Obviously, we know James Harden does that a lot. DeMar DeRozan, my favorite player in the NBA, does that a lot as well. I just don't think it should be a foul, especially when it's blatant, like sometimes these players do, especially where Trae Young kind of gets him in the air and completely leans forward just to get the shot off. Like, honestly, I just think that this should be an offensive foul. Now, there will be times where the defensive player kind of jumps into him, and sure, that could be done. But when you can clearly see that the offensive player is like jumping into the guy, like, that is an offensive foul. That it should be like it's just not natural. It's not basketball, and it's slowing the game down, and it just like kind of like messes with the flow. I just don't think it's a bad call. I mean, you could tell the defense to be a bit more disciplined, but at the same time, the defensive players are already at a huge disadvantage. So you're just giving the offensive player, I guess, more advantages, which you kind of want in an offensive league. But at the same time, man, like, it's just like some of these are just so blatant, they're so obvious, and it just doesn't sit right with me. There are a lot of things. There's a couple things that I wanted the NBA to fix, including the clear path foul rule, which hopefully I can get to down on in the future. But this is one of them. This is definitely one of them, and I believe that it just doesn't feel like a basketball play. It just doesn't feel right. And I mean, like, you can look at Trae Young where he's averaging like over 10 free throws a game doing it, but it's just the type of calls he gets. Like, it's different like going into the paint and like getting hacked and stuff like that. Like, that's fine. But when you're like purposely like not even trying to get a shot off and getting these fouls, that's where it kind of crosses the line. And I think the NBA just needs to find a balance where at some point like they have to call an offensive foul on that. That's like at certain times. But yeah, those are the topics we discussed today. Leave it down in the comments down below, in the in Instagram as well, or shoot me a DM if you agree or disagree with any of these points. We're going to the ed segments of the show. Every Monday, I like to do a power rankings for the week. I'm going to do that once again today. We're going to go from 10 to 1. I'm going to warn you guys right now, there's no new teams in this, but there is a lot of movement. So, yeah, with that being said, let's get right into this. Starting off at number 10, we have a team that has dropped, who had a 0-2 week this week. It's the Denver Nuggets. I mean, they still sit 6th in the West, but they've had two pretty bad losses to the Kings and the Lakers. The Lakers, they lost by 21 points, and the Kings, they just couldn't close it out. And what sucks about this is that Jokic had like a 50-point near triple-double, and they still couldn't get a win over the Kings. Like, that was just a bad week for them. The only reason I still have them here is that they're still kind of comfortably in the playoff picture. But the Kings are coming. The Kings are coming. The Rockets are up there. The Grizzlies are up there. Like, between, like, 4th and, 14, there's only separated by 4 games, so it's getting really tight down there. And, okay, that came out so wrong. But, yeah, at least the Nuggets are still in the playoff picture. I have them at number 10. Coming at number 9 is another team that's kind of had a rough week. I'm going to be talking about the Boston Celtics. At least, like, what kind of keeps them in this top 10 is that they had some good wins to bounce out with the bad ones. I mean, they got a good win against the LA Clippers, which is a pretty entertaining game. They got a good win against the Warriors. But then they also lost to the Kings and the Suns. What sucked about them this week is that their guard rotation was kind of in and out. I mean, I think Pritchard just got back, which is good. But Kemba Walker was out for a game, and then Jaylen Brown was out for a game. It was just like kind of like an in and out and stuff like that. Unfortunate for them, but they stay at number 9. Coming at number 8, we have a team that was actually lower last week, but they had a positive week this week. And I'm going to be talking about the Phoenix Suns. They're back to number 4 in the West, 2-game winning streak. And they're just pulling out good wins, playing good on the defensive end. And they just really needed these wins just to be kind of to stay comfortable in the playoff picture. I still don't think we've seen the best of them. Devin Booker hasn't looked like, all NBA Devin Booker. DeAndre Ayton is still trying to find his role in that team, or like how good he could be. But they had a good week. They're number 4 in the West. That's why they're number 8. Coming in at number 7 is a team that continues to roll. We have the San Antonio Spurs, who are right now sitting 5th in the West, just behind the Phoenix Suns. Good wins again this week against the Houston Rockets and the Timberwolves. And DeMar DeRozan is playing really well this season, averaging 20.5 points per game, almost 7 rebounds, 5 assists. He's definitely should be in All-Star conversations, especially with the way the Spurs have been playing. And, they just continue to produce. They continue to shock people. The young guys are playing hard. Patty Mills is having a great year off the bench. And the Spurs continue to roll. And they're at number 7. Coming at number 6, we have the Brooklyn Nets. Obviously, they had a horrific week last week because of the whole KD situation, because of kind of like people going in and out of their lineup. They've lost their last 2 games to the Raptors and the 76ers. I think in the game against the 76ers, they had no Kyrie Irving as well. So you can't really fault them for that. But a 1-2 week. Yes, they got a good win over the Clippers, but it was definitely a rough week for the Brooklyn Nets. I only moved them down 1 spot, but I think they'll just bounce back once they get all their guys healthy. That's why they sit at number 6. At number 5, we have the Milwaukee Bucks. They're on a 4-game winning streak right now. They didn't face the craziest of opponents. I mean, the Trailblazers with just Dame, they completely annihilated them. The Pacers, who have been struggling as of late, they dominated, and then 2 big wins over the Cavs. It was just 4 blowouts, 4 wins. They just need to stay consistent, find that flow again. Hopefully get some more consistent production out of the rest of their guys. Chris Middleton's having a really good year as well, which is good. Giannis doing his thing. And yeah, they are back to number 2 in the East. I have them at number 5 in this power rankings. Number 4, we have the Los Angeles Clippers. They were actually number 1 last week, and they just had a rough week. Losing 3 of the last 4 games. And there was just some bad losses. I mean, the Kings was a pretty bad loss. The Celtics, where they were actually in control for the first 3 quarters, they lost that game, and then lost a close one to the Brooklyn Nets. So, kind of rough week for them. They also kind of lost Paul George to a minor injury, so he couldn't play a couple games that week. But yeah, it was just a bad week for them. That's why they drop him 3 spots. But they're still 3rd in the West, still looking like a good team. Once they get Paul George back and they get kind of a nice little win streak going, they'll be fine. So the Clippers are at number 4. Coming in at number 3 is the number 1 team in the East right now, the Philadelphia 76ers. I believe they had a 3-1 week this week. Good wins over the Pacers and the Nets. And yeah, they just need to stay healthy. I think that's all. I don't have much to say. They're playing really well, and Embiid is playing at an MVP level. All they gotta do is stay healthy, continue to fight on the defensive end, and I think they can make some noise in the playoffs. They really can. But yeah, I mean that 1 loss is kind of what keeps them at number 3. I think I had them at number 3 last week, but another good week. I have the 76ers at number 3. Coming in at number 2, as a team that has moved up, we have the Utah Jazz, who are the number 1 team in the West right now, 19-5 record, an undefeated week. And they just continue to prove, to show us that they are a legit team. They have been playing extremely well. Again, they're have one of the best defenses in the league. Number 3 on defense. And now their offense has creeped up the top 5. They have been absolutely fantastic. They are playing one of the best teams in the league. Donovan Mitchell leading that team really well. Rudy Gobert being the anchor on the defensive end. And even people like Bojan Bogdanovic, who has struggled early in the season, they're starting to get their footing. Jordan Clarkson, 6th man of the year favorite, no doubt. Mike Conley having a fantastic bounce back year. They're just looking good up and down the roster. Hopefully they can keep this up for the rest of the season. But right now, I have them at number 2 in my power rankings. And coming in at number 1, they probably saw my power rankings and thought, TV left us up, took us out for number 1 for the first time. Let's go undefeated this week and prove to him that we are still the best team in basketball. That is the Los Angeles Lakers, a 4-game winning streak that they're on right now. Completely annihilated some teams in the Denver Nuggets, and they actually had a comfortable win against the Hawks. But the Pistons game, man, that Pistons game was actually really, really close until LeBron took over in that second overtime. But still, undefeated week. They look like the best team in basketball. I have the Lakers back at number 1. But yeah, those are my power rankings. Leave it down below whether you agree or disagree. We are going to end the show now with the game of the week. I had another loss as the, I believe it was, I was on Friday night. Like, I had a game, I think it was the Clippers Celtics. Yeah, I think it was the Clippers Celtics. I had the Clippers winning -5. And then I saw Paul George was out with injury, which gave me less confidence. But then Jaylen Brown was also like out of that game, so I thought maybe the Clippers could still pull it out. But the Celtics were able to pull it out, so I dropped to 5-8. Yeah, it's been a really rough start to pick of the week for me. But I'm back. I'm going to try and inch my way back to 500. We have the San Antonio Spurs tonight taking on the Golden State Warriors, with the Spurs being -1 favorite. So it's basically a coin flip. The Spurs have to win by 1 or more, and the Golden State Warriors have to win to kind of go against the spread. The Warriors had a really good offensive game last game versus the Dallas Mavericks, so they could possibly get the win here. But right now, the Spurs are rolling and they're playing good. They're getting good production from DeMar DeRozan, and I think they're gonna get the win here. Golden State, obviously, they gotta hand it for Steph Curry. But I think this is a game where the Warriors might lock into DeMar DeRozan and let the other guys try and beat them. And I think that they're capable enough to do that. And I think the Spurs will just be able to pull this out. Like I said, it's basically a pick 'em because it's only a -1 spread. But in this game, I will take the San Antonio Spurs. But yeah, if you disagree with me, remember to leave it down in the comment section below. Or comment on the post I'm going to do tonight about this game. But I think this is where we're going to end today's episode. Thank you guys for watching or listening. Remember to show love on all the podcast channels. Like, share, subscribe. Hit the notification bell on if you're on YouTube. And remember to follow @TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for other great content. This week, Wednesday, we're going to have another video out on YouTube, a YouTube exclusive. So definitely go check that out. And also on Friday, I'm going to be back with another podcast. Maybe have a guest, maybe not. We'll have to wait and see. But either way, there's still going to be a podcast coming out this Friday. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys for all the support you've been giving. We are closing in on 2,400 downloads. Almost 400 downloads to start off the year, which is absolutely crazy. Thank you guys for all the support you've been showing the channel. Yeah, I can't wait to continue this NBA season. Hopefully things all go well. As of the last test, there have been no positive results, so that's good for the NBA. But yeah, I hope it all goes well, and we can continue to grow this channel together. But yeah, this is the end of today's episode. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you all have a fantastic day. Take it easy, guys. TV signing out.